Welcome back to the Bourbon Note, everybody. I'm Ben. I got a burr rye on the bar tonight. Let's get into it. So on the bar tonight, I've got, bam, this is Redwood Empire Lost Monarch cask strength. So a little while ago, I put out a video talking about some whiskey brands that I've been ignoring that maybe I shouldn't be. And if you haven't seen that video, the general theme of it was just kind of like, you know, there are certain brands that I see at liquor stores all the time that I'm meaning to get around to exploring. And a lot of times it's just because I take for granted that they're always there and something else always comes up. Where it's like, okay, I'll get to that at some point. And Redwood Empire was one of those. I've never owned a Redwood Empire bottle. I have had some samples, but it's been a while. And so my friend Buck's brother came slamming home with the bottle donation along with a killer sample pack of whiskey and a killer sample pack of craft beers. So thank you very much, Buck's brother. So we're gonna get into this one. This is Lost Monarch cask strength. It is, boy, I can't really see what the proof is. I can't read that from here. I think I'm gonna have to maybe just put that on the screen or something. Hold on a second. Let's bust out the light up magnifying glass. 58.1% alcohol. So do the math on that. I hate it when they make you do the math on your own. 58.1, so 116.2 proof, is that going off the top of my head there? Anyway, enough of me trying to do math. Let's get into the whiskey here. So this is a blend of bourbon and rye. And one thing that I didn't notice before I tried this for the first time, because I did sample this before doing this review, is it actually says on here aged at least 3 years. Typically that is gonna probably maybe deter me from buying the bottle. But that's, you know, the age statement is only the youngest whiskey in the blend. But I think this one runs closer to the upper 70s, I think, in price. So, you know, if I'm looking at a bottle that says age 3 years, at least 3 years, and it's that much, I'm usually gonna move on to something else. But let's see what happens here on the palate. Actually, I forgot to give the nosing notes. Geez, I'm just all over the board here. On the nose, it's actually nosing a little bit more bold than maybe the proof would suggest. I mean, not that it's a low proof, but it's really, it's kind of got a really aggressive nose to it. But in a good way. There's a lot of different aromas coming out of this. There's a really, really nice caramel. There's a grain note to it that might come from the youth, but I think it actually works in its favor. Excuse me, in its favor? This whole review is just gonna be me screwing up. Yeah, there's a caramel, there's a vanilla, there's a little bit of that waxy vanilla, that zebra cake that I talk about a lot on ryes in particular. Yeah, it's actually got a really nice, interesting nose. It's got some standard bourbon and rye sort of profile, but it does have something unique to it. So let's get into the palate. Cheers. On that first sip, this is a really interesting whiskey. It definitely has a little bit of the, you can feel the rye influence. You can taste the rye influence on it. It has kind of that rye spice and that rye flavor to it, but it's very, very well balanced with this really interesting wood note that, I don't know, it's not coming across as necessarily oaky, but almost like a borderline, like cedar or something, which I have gotten on other whiskeys. There is that nice vanilla kind of underneath it, vanillas and caramels. This one's interesting. It definitely, on the palate, just like on the nose, it kind of has its own sort of like, it's got some standard flavors, but it's got its own kind of signature to it, which I'm not sure if this is their own distillate or not. I can check on that, but I would guess that at least the 3 year stuff is probably theirs. But yeah, it definitely has some interesting notes to it. Let's get into the second sip here and get a little further into this one. So after a couple more sips, this one is definitely like I said before, it's interesting. It has kind of its own signature to it. I did look on the back. They do have the proof on the back. It is 116.2, which I think is what I said. So yay me on the math. And it says it's 55% rye and 45% bourbon. And it does say bottled by Redwood Empire Distilling, some town in California. And it says product of California. So I don't know why it says bottled by and not produced by, but it says it's a product of California. So at least, you know, this distillate came from somewhere in California. And I would say kudos to them if this is their own juice, because it is a nice whiskey. That cedar note that I was getting has continued. And I'll be honest, there are some bourbons that I've had, or some ryes that I've had that have had kind of like that cedar note where it didn't work out at all. It just kind of threw the whole profile off. In this case, I don't think it does that. I think this is a good, well, whiskey, I was going to say bourbon, but rye bourbon blend that just kind of has some unique notes to it that I think is kind of a, you know, when I see these, you know, kind of smaller distilleries, which I don't know if this is even considered a small distillery at this point. They're pretty much available everywhere, I think, but they're not one of the legacy brands. When I see brands like that putting out whiskey that's actually good, that is, for me, like, I get excited by that because I like to kind of explore different brands that are maybe doing something that's like, you know, on the craft side of whiskey, but doesn't have that negative kind of craft note that I think, you know, if you're watching this video, you've explored some craft whiskeys, you maybe know what I'm talking about. There's, you know, some, you know, smaller distilleries have to release product that's not ready yet just to, you know, get something out to market. Sometimes there's just a weird like craft whiskey note that's overwhelming in it. That if it's kind of tamped down a little more balanced with the other flavors in the bourbon actually kind of works for it. In this case, this does have kind of a craft whiskey sort of signature to it, but it works for it. It's kind of balanced nicely with that interesting wood note that's kind of bordering on cedar. But there is a little bit of brown sugar under there. There is that waxy vanilla that's kind of nice, you know, on the rye influence of it. But then it does have kind of a crafty note, but in this case, it does work for it. So at the full price point, which again, I think it's in the upper 70s, I was told. You know what? Please hold. I'm going to look it up. So looking it up online, at a Minnesota Total Wine, it goes for 75 bucks. At that price point, I mean, there's a lot of options at that price point and under that are, you know, that I would probably drink before this. But I don't know. I feel like that's kind of an unfair way to judge a whiskey because, like, if you want to try something that's different and that, you know, is not going to have just a standard profile but is still good, I think this is a good option. Again, I think the aged at least 3 years at that price point would have turned me off of it, but I'm glad to have a bottle of this on the shelf because I actually do enjoy this. And so, you know, maybe going forward, I don't have to judge that 3-year age statement quite so much because, again, that is just the youngest distillate that's in the blend. It could be majority, you know, 5-6 year stuff. So anyway, you know, in conclusion, I think this is a good whiskey. It's interesting. It's got its own kind of unique profile. It does make me more inclined to kind of, you know, explore the Redwood Empire brand a little more than I have. So thank you very, very much to Buck's brother for providing, good Lord, I can't talk in this review, for providing this bottle. And yeah, I'm going to check out more products from them. So anyway, folks, this has been Redwood Empire Lost Monarch, cask strength on the Bourbon Note. I'm Ben. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. We'll see you on the next one.